Okay, everyone, just so you know, Devin is not looking up and over me. She has her phone set, she's having internet problems. So she has the phone set up a certain way. So she's not being dismissive. It's just a camera angle issue. So here we go. Devin, what are we talking about today?
Well, we have a couple interesting topics today. So
we're talking out. We're going to talk about really boring, mundane, scientific stuff that no one's going to like and take any interest in. But you still have to sit here and listen to us for 40 minutes. Please, what are these interesting topics we're going to talk about?
One is regarding not beating yourself up if you've messed up or maybe missed some workouts or overate or something like that. And then talking about not making arbitrary rules, like making sure you're taking an educated approach if you are removing or minimizing certain types of foods.
Wait, repeat that second one because I want to write that down. That sounds interesting to me. Go ahead.
Taking a more educated approach to food, so you're not making arbitrary rules that actually don't help you in the long run.
Oh, okay. So it's not like you're gonna recite Shakespeare while you're eating. When you take a more educated approach to food, it's that you're not buying into common fallacies. Can we start with that one? Because I want to hear what you have to say about that. What are some of the common fallacies about diet that you think overcomplicate and to a degree trip people up?
Well, I think one of them is thinking that you can't eat certain food groups, or you have to remove carbs and sugar, or you can't eat bread. I know people that say they removed bread from their diet, but then 5 minutes later they're telling me about this deep fried thing that they had dipped in this mayonnaise based sauce, which there's nothing wrong with eating fried food. There's nothing wrong with eating mayonnaise, but that stuff's probably going to be equally, if not more calorie dense than having a slice of bread. So I think
what you're telling me is one time I was on now tell me if this applies to that example. I knew this guy, he was getting into low carb, and he put up this diet for a low carb pizza, and it involved a cauliflower crust, right? And then it involved a pound of mozzarella cheese and a stick of pepperoni. And when I added it up, there were no carbs in it, but there were literally triple the calories that are in a large 2-topping Domino's pizza. Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly.
Okay, please go on.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just, and I know people dismiss the idea of tracking your food or just taking some time to maybe just Googling some foods you eat often, looking it up on a website like calorieking.com, looking up those foods that you eat often and seeing where they really fit in the context of your calorie target. And if someone has a calorie target, we're just getting an idea of the calorie amount. And I think that can be helpful when you are building your diet or building your eating strategy, of seeing oh, okay, let's say that big box of dried fruit was actually a lot more calories than I thought, but it's dried fruit, so it's healthy, but it's actually very calorie dense. Or that trail mix that someone was eating, maybe it's healthy to them, but it's very calorie dense. So I think just digging deeper and understanding portions and calorie density and calorie amounts. You don't have to memorize calories of every single food that you eat, but I think just having a better grasp on that can allow someone who is actively trying to control their calories to do that or to actually do that without overeating, without realizing it. Because that's what happens a lot of times, is people are over consuming calories thinking, oh, I'm just eating these healthy foods and I'm not eating bread, I'm not eating sugar. And when in actuality, they're not actually in a calorie deficit, that's the thing that's preventing their weight loss, not that they didn't remove those foods.
No, it makes sense. I mean, sometimes there are some people who eliminate whole food groups and it helps them because that's the whole food group they tend to overeat. And maybe it's a period of time. Maybe they need to desensitize themselves to the taste and the flavor and the quantity of a certain food. If you don't eat salt or sugar for a while and you go back and start eating it again, you're shocked at how little of it you need in order to get the taste response you want. But if you eat it all the time, it's almost like more and more and more gives you less and less and less, right? So some people, there is a benefit sometimes to temporarily cutting out certain foods to make them more sensitized to them. to allow them to establish other habits, give them a break from the very things they overeat, to find other maybe similar low calorie substitutes, things that are lower carb, like you're used to eating fajita shells, but then you find out the lower carb fajita shell isn't that bad, and that maybe even you like it more, right? So there is some value, I think, sometimes to cutting certain things out, but ultimately it's not going to solve what people think it's going to solve. You still have to be in a calorie deficit, and unless the thing you're cutting out is what's blowing your calorie deficit, it's not going to solve your problem. And to your point, if you replace with things that are more calorie dense, or you eat more of them, you're back right to where you were, right? You're demonizing the. I think the example I use. Remember when you moved to Florida, right? Remember the example about Uganda. Now people look at Devin, they see this beautiful Scandinavian woman. They're like, how could you possibly relate Devin to Uganda? But remember the example I gave to you was at a time. East Indians, Asian Indians, people from India were a large part of the population of Uganda. And then when colonialism stopped, the dictator Idi Amin came in there. He took all the people's money and he threw them out, right? 10 years later, the Ugandan economy went in the toilet, and those people, despite having all their money taken away from them, went somewhere else and succeeded. Why? Because the basic knowledge and skills, in our case, the calorie deficit was still there. They just applied it to something differently, right? So picking a boogeyman, right? Blaming a certain person for your problem or a certain food for your problem rarely, if ever, works if the underlying problem has nothing to do with what you're blaming, and usually it doesn't. Right? So that's one example. And it takes someone like me. For me, moderation means something different. Like, for example, I've talked about this. General Tso's chickens, Carvalanches, John Burns chicken parm sandwiches, right? These are foods that, for me, moderation means one time a year. I said this to a client of mine once. I said to him, I love John Burns chicken parm sandwiches so much. I love Carvalanches so much. I love General Tso's chicken so much. I only eat it once a year. And he said to me, that literally makes no sense. You love something so much, you only eat it once a year. That's because I love it so much, right? So I cut those foods out of my diet all but one day out of the year, because for me, that's the only way I can responsibly moderate those foods, because it's not just the flavor and the taste. There is an emotional connection to those foods. All right, so you got to take that all into account. But your point is so well taken, is that if you start demonizing a certain food group, instead of looking at the principles behind why that food group could be a problem for you, you're just kicking the can down the road. And it's eventually going to come back and blow up in your face. That's it, right?
Yeah.
Right, there you go. So there we got Uganda, we got John Burns, and we got chicken parm sandwich, somehow all tied together. The king of non sequiturs over here. Okay, please go continue.
Right. Yeah. I think it's, for some people, it can make sense to remove or minimize those food groups, or only have them in certain settings. Like you only have your General Tso's chicken once a year on Christmas.
Right.
Yeah. So that can make sense too. But I think just the important thing is knowing that, like, blindly slashing types of foods doesn't guarantee being in a calorie deficit, is the main point that I'm trying to make.
Especially if you don't have the underlying skills. Like, we know when you moved to Florida, your expertise as a trainer never changed. So you brought those underlying skills with you no matter where you go. And yeah, okay, you start over in a new gym as a trainer, you're not going to have a full book. But there's a big difference between having those skills and starting over at a gym and not having those skills. Right? So that's the point being made. Those people from India were literally ripped from the only home they ever knew. They never lived in India, right? But they still had those inherent business skills, that education, that value for education, so that no matter where you put them, they would succeed. What I'm trying to say is, if you understand the concept of calorie control and you understand the concept of meal prep, and if you don't, Devin has hundreds of awesome videos that you can watch that show you how to prep meals properly. Once you develop those skills, you can succeed within almost any dietary paradigm. Now, look, if you're diabetic, maybe doing a high carb, high sugar diet is not your best choice. But it really comes down to those principles, right? Valuing your health, awareness, understanding the importance of calorie deficit, understanding the importance of, say, having some hunger sparing nutrient like fat, protein, fiber. Once you have that, you can basically apply it to any diet and succeed, as long as that diet puts you in a calorie deficit. The problem with these diets is they convince people that there's something else at work. There's some inherent chemical hormonal thing that's the boogeyman behind all this. And that's why their diet works better than any other. It really is. If you have a person with the proper mindset and the proper skill set, you can get them pretty much to succeed on almost any diet out there that isn't completely out of its mind. Right? So, I mean, I think that's a very, very good point that people miss. And if we just stop wasting time coming up with all these fantasies about what causes weight gain and just accept that it's about something as simple as calories in, calories out, but in something as complex as the human psyche, right? And environment, if we can start focusing on bridging that gap, we'll get somewhere. But if we keep going off on these side roads of all these different things that we try to act like are the explanation, which usually sells somebody's book, we get nowhere, right? We spend, what, $60 billion a year in the weight loss industry, and people just keep getting more and more overweight. Mm-hmm. It's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Right.
We pinball from diet to diet to diet without ever understanding the only common denominator between all, now I'm blowing my own mind. The only common denominator between all these different fad diets they've tried is them. That's the only common thing. Because you can't tell me that Optavia is anything like Atkins, which is anything like Prickin, which is anything like the Zone, which is anything like intermittent fasting, right? You couldn't have anything like veganism or vegetarianism. You couldn't have a more diverse, different body of things. And if they all fail, then guess what? The only common thing is you and your approach to the diet. So I'm not saying there's not bad diets out there. There's some stupid diets out there that don't work. But for the most part, any of those meal plans that I just mentioned to you, you can make those work. But yeah, that's the hard part of those principles that make those diets work. There's nothing inherently superior about any of them. Okay, right. I've ranted too much. Go ahead, Devin. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think knowing that at the end of the day, the calories in, calories out, as that being the most important thing, I think that gives, as much as people want to blame weight gain or their struggle with weight loss on something else, I think that almost gives you a degree of freedom as you can build your own eating strategy that makes that like you can stick to, but at the end of the day, the calories, and it probably has to have a decent amount of protein, decent amount of fiber, and just enough fat. But as long as you can check those boxes, your strategy, you can make your strategy fit you rather than trying to fit yourself in a box of like a diet with a name.
Understood. Question: what are some other fallacies that people have about weight loss that really trip them up and cause them to waste time? Demonizing certain foods, ignoring the importance of calorie deficit. What else is there?
I think having unrealistic expectations. So I think even just like checking out at the grocery store, you see all those women's magazines that are like, this woman lost 80 pounds, 100 pounds, 10 pounds in a week. And you see all those and people have those expectations. So then when they lose a pound in a week, 2 pounds in a week, they think they're doing something wrong. And then they quit. And then they end up in this cycle of starting and stopping and starting and stopping because they think they're supposed to be losing 10 to 15 pounds in a week, when that's like, if you're losing weight that fast, it's either not going to be a sustainable method. You're probably going to lose a lot of muscle. You're probably losing a lot of water weight. So I think that not having correct expectations, I think that's a huge one that trips people up.
So you mean to tell me, Devin, that the Biggest Loser, where people were losing 10, 15, 20 pounds a week, you're telling me not only is that not realistic, it doesn't necessarily bode well for people's success over the long term. You're telling me that even if I had the proper equipment, that losing 10 to 15 to 20 pounds a week is not realistic and sustainable over the long run.
Correct.
You're telling me that even with the proper equipment, the Biggest Loser people, an overwhelming majority of them, gain the weight back.
They do.
Wow. So you literally can have someone who watches The Biggest Loser claim that it's a good show, was a good show, right? It inspires people to lose weight. Then they go lose 2 pounds in a week, 4 pounds in a week, which is an incredible amount of weight. Even in the beginning, that's still a pretty good amount of weight. And a low-carb diet might lose more because you're draining water out of your system, whatever. They could feel like total crap And then total crap translates into total domination of a sleeve of Oreos because they only lost 4 pounds.
Right.
It's human nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what human beings do. I remember that growing up. I remember guys, we'd go in the weight room and they would do the same routine as you did, but they would put 30, 40 pounds on their bench in a couple months because basically they were better built to be strong than you were. Unless you have that perspective, unless you have that understanding, it can be frustrating. But now you're lucky. You've just heard Devin talk about this. Number one, everyone loses weight at different rates. Everyone loses weight to different amounts. Men are not the same as women. Women are not the same as other women. And the bottom line is, it is just simply not sustainable or really to a degree normal, I think, for someone to lose that massive amount of weight in such a short period of time. And as the diet goes along, your weight loss inevitably will begin to slow as your body begins to adapt to the lower amount of energy intake. As your body gets closer to your genetic potential, which may, for some people, may be an easy 8% body fat, for some people, maybe 12, for some people, maybe 16. As you get closer, whatever that potential you have is, things are going to start to slow down, whether you like it or not. Your body doesn't understand bikini season and skinny jeans. It understands you're putting it into a famine, and it will respond based on how it's been programmed for millions of years. So I could definitely see how that unrealistic expectation, especially in pounds lost, could really blow up in somebody's face.
Yeah.
That's huge. And you know what's always funny to me? Dr. Oz always seems to be on the cover of those magazines where he's not saying it. You ever notice that? It's like Dr. Oz, and he's like, the guy doesn't have enough money already, right? He's standing there like this, and all of a sudden in the bottom left-hand corner, so he doesn't exactly have to take credit for it. There's like, eat this berry and lose 20 pounds in a month. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I always notice that he, for some reason, seems to be a part of everything. But whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Him and Suzanne. What's that?
Him and Suzanne Summers.
And Suzanne Summers, who's had more work done her than the Long Island Expressway, for crying out loud. You know, and she's talking about dietary strategies. Jesus. Whatever. I'm not going to get into my Suzanne Summers rant either. So I'm using my Thigh Master in my short shorts. All right, Devin, is there any other fallacies you want to cover?
Well, I think that the weight loss expectation that I was just talking about, I think that could kind of go down 2 different rabbit holes. Like the one, just unrealistic expectations as far as kind of what's like pushed in like magazines and TV, and just people wanting extremes and not understanding that it takes time, but also not having the effort and expectations aligned.
Can you explain that? That sounds like that could be huge. I got to write that down. Efforts and expectations aligned. Are we talking about like having the dream and not the drive? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, pretty much.
Could you unpack that? Because I think there's something huge on. By the way, guys, I'm not looking down and away from Devin. I take notes. When Devin speaks, I take notes. So in case anyone's wondering why I'm looking down and away, it's because I'm taking Devin notes. Devin, please explain efforts versus expectations not being aligned.
Yeah, I think, and some of this can come down to just a lack of knowledge and understanding what needs to happen to create a specific outcome, but also let's say like the efforts in being more consistent than you think. Like you have to be more consistent than you think you have to be. Like just eating salads for lunch Monday through Friday doesn't necessarily, again, yeah.
You know how much I hate people who laugh and smile when they eat salads. That's like, guys, that's one of my things. Everyone's got bugaboos. I cannot stand pictures of people eating salad. Like, it's a friggin' salad. What are you smiling about? Please go ahead.
Well, the salad thing, that goes in the category of like cutting out bread, thinking that it's going to guarantee a calorie deficit. Same thing, eating salad, thinking that you're saving calories. I guess that's for another conversation. But so I was talking about this salad. Oh yeah, just eating a salad Monday through Friday. But like, how many total calories are you eating? Like, what does Saturday, like Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday look like? That's an example. But
wait, you're telling me people have false sense of salad security? Is that what you're telling me?
They do.
FSS, false sense. What would be false sense of salad security? It would be FSOSS. Yes. Okay. I'm going to write that down. I like that.
Yeah, that's good.
Let me put some dried fruit and dressing and bacon bits on my salad, and it'll wind up having
Candied,
more. Yeah,
candied nuts.
yeah,
Yeah.
candy. I remember one time I went to a hockey game and someone was eating a salad and had more calories in it than my roast pork sandwich. So in Philly, the real sandwich, not the cheesesteak, that's what they give the tourists to go away. It's a roast pork, Italian roast pork with sauteed broccoli rabe and sharp provolone. Some people put hots on it. I don't put hots on it. I like mine wet. Some people don't like it too wet. But it's a roast pork sandwich with broccoli rabe and sharp provolone. Now that doesn't sound like a low calorie sandwich, but please understand when you have a false sense of salad security, you literally can create a salad that has more calories in it than a roast pork sandwich with broccoli rabe, sauteed in oil, sharp provolone, very wet. You know what I mean? It's just that's I get it. I live that. You're absolutely right.
Right.
Well, let me. I got my fan on. I'm starting to get hot. This conversation's firing me up. I'll be right back. I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So the false sense of salad security, and then I forget where I was going with the salad. Oh, just the efforts aligning with the expectations, or let's say someone's being very diligent with tracking their calories, and let's say they do that. Let's say they do that every day, Monday through Saturday, and then Sunday is their day where they go out and just having, I'm not saying like you have to like obsess over one little meal, but sometimes one day can be enough to erase a deficit. So that's just another example of having, well, I just had one meal or one day where I didn't track calories, or like, it's not the tracking that keeps you in a deficit, but it's the actually consuming that amount of calories. But let's say someone goes over on that calorie target one day, it erased the deficit for the week, and then thinking like, oh, I've been consistent for so many months. It's like, well, how many days are you hitting your calorie target? And it's like, well, every Sunday I go out to a bar and order appetizers and drinks and whatever, but I have to live my life. And it's like, well, yeah, you can live your life, but you have to, if you're in a dieting phase, you do have to be a little bit more diligent to ensure that calorie deficit.
I have a question. What do you think drives that? What do you think drives something you said just triggered something in my brain about people say, well, I have to live my life, but yet they don't understand what their definition of living a life is not congruent with the lifestyle necessary to lose weight, right? That there has to be limitation and sacrifice on some level. And that basically when it comes to losing weight, for some people, life as they know it is over. Because you're right. If you're a smaller person, say you're like you're a woman who weighs 120 pounds, you simply don't have that many calories to play with unless you're super active. And even then, because you're a smaller person, you don't burn as many calories, right? So you might at best be in a 200 calorie a day deficit. And that's about all you can manage because you're smaller. For me, 200 calories a day is nothing. But for a smaller person, it's a big deal. You do that for, say, 13 days straight. What's that put you in? Like a 2,600 calorie deficit, right? Now, all of a sudden, you go out and you have one good weekend. You go out and you live your life because you have to live your life. Nothing can change. Well, something did change. You didn't live your life for a week. You're living your life every other week. You can blow a 2,600 calorie deficit like nothing, right? I don't know if I did one of my videos, but for my birthday, I had my carvalanche. The carvalanche was 1,800 calories. I ate 1,800 calories in under 10 minutes, and it didn't even make a dent. It actually made me so happy I wanted to go eat another carvalanche, right? I literally almost blew 13 days of somebody's hard work on one calorie-dense food. And I don't know how we talk to people about that, because it's almost like you got to tell them that the way you understand life, the way you eat. I was listening to an economist talk the other day, and he was trying to explain why people have so many financial problems. And he talked about this guy who fought in the Korean War. He's an older guy. And he said that the idea of having someone else make their food growing up, because he grew up very poor, was insane to him, right? And then you got guys and gals who are making less than $50,000 a year, and they're door dashing every day, right? So it's almost like, how do you, and then when you say that to them, they get very defensive about these things. They don't want to hear it. sometimes it amazes me. I wonder if some people just don't have the right perspective for weight loss, because when they say that I have to live my life, they have to understand the definition of life they have is not conducive to the financial future they want. That is not conducive to the body that they want. That I'm talking out of my ass because I'm not a finance guy, but diet and exercise, I definitely know, right? So they're doing things that are not conducive to what they need to lose weight, because they can't drop the concept of what they think they should and should not be able to do when they're on a diet.
Yes, that's exactly.
Right? I think that's why my client, now see Devin, this is why I take Devin notes. I think this is why my client had such a hard time understanding why I love something so much, but I only eat it once a year. He couldn't grasp that concept, right? If you love something so much, why would you only eat it once a year? It's because I know what happens. It's not just, see, that food's like, they always said marijuana was the gateway drug, even though it's like cigarettes and alcohol. But they don't say, because right, it would turn you on to other drugs in the drug subculture. Well, that's kind of what General Tso's chicken is like to me. It's like the gateway drug, right? It opens up all the floodgates to all the other things that I could indulge in all the time. Right? That was awesome. Thank you, Deb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
efforts and expectations aligning. Yes.
What'd you say?
No, I'm just reading my notes out loud. Efforts and expectations aligning. What needs to happen in order to achieve a specific outcome is not often what people really understand it takes.
Yeah.
They want extraordinary results without understanding that a lot of times it requires extraordinary efforts. And that, anyone can lose weight, but sometimes people have these Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight delusions of grandeur, and they believe they can have this body that no one in their family has, that they've never had in their life before, without understanding the degree of sacrifice that takes is incredible.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's what another thing that came to me, like something that can trip people up is not like knowing yourself and knowing your, I don't know if you would say shortcomings, but kind of like learning your lessons. Like for you, you learned along the way, like I do better with my eating when I only have these certain foods and meals very infrequently. So I think a lot of times people don't learn from things that hold them back. And this can kind of probably segue us into our next topic, but kind of like learning your lesson and using that knowledge to maybe build a new system moving forward that helps you, like whether it's staying in a calorie deficit or avoiding overeating certain foods, and things like that.
Well, maybe they learn a lesson, but they learn the wrong lesson, right? So the lesson I learned is John Burns makes a hell of a chicken parm sandwich, right? The problem is the lesson I learned from that John Burns makes a hell of a chicken parm sandwich. John Burns, he's a guy, is the fact that he makes a chicken parm sandwich that's so awesome that I can only really have it once every now and then because of the effect it has on me. Where some people are like, wait, John Burns makes an awesome chicken parm sandwich. Well, you got to have John Burns make you more chicken parm sandwiches, right? That's the lesson they learn from it. Mm-hmm. Whereas the person who maybe does a little better job with their weight loss and weight maintenance takes a whole different lesson out of the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a lesson learned, but it's not necessarily the one that's going to be, it's not even right or wrong. It's not the lesson that needs to be learned that's conducive to them losing the weight they want to lose. And here's what's awesome, Devin. We might have to learn not to beat ourselves up because now all of a sudden there's only 9 minutes, and 49 seconds left, and we're just getting to the other topic. So we may not be able to beat our, let me ask you this. Maybe we say that for another video. Are there any other fallacies about weight loss that you find people buy into that screw them up?
I think one huge one is thinking that exercise burns a lot more calories than it actually does. And what a lot of people do is still work out. Let's say they do an hour of cardio 6 days a week, but maybe they pay a little attention to diet. Maybe they are just doing the whole, like just blindly eating healthy thing that we were talking about, like the salad, the false salad security.
False sense of salad security. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a shirt right there.
And then they can go weeks or months and not see any progress, thinking that they're burning 1,000 calories in their, whether it's their fitness class that they take, or on their elliptical session. And in reality, exercise doesn't burn that many calories. And what, when you're trying to lose weight, or more specifically lose body fat, the important thing you want to get out of your exercise is really the muscle preservation aspect of it.
Yes.
Doing some cardio, of course, to boost a little bit of calorie burn is important, but that's definitely going to be lower on the tier of importance than, like, diet's going to be number one, strength training to preserve muscle is going to be number two, and then the cardio or extra calorie burn, that's just going to be like the cherry on top.
Devin, I'm so excited right now. I'm going to come up with a new t-shirt. False sense of salad security. I was afraid I wasn't going to hit my financial goals by the end of the year. I think this is just going to solve I sound like some idiot on a fad diet right now. I'm not going to hit this is why I can't talk about finances, because I talk out of my ass. I'm like, I'm going to create this t-shirt, the false sense of salad security. I'm going to sell it on. Who sells t-shirts? I don't even know where to go. And I'm going to sell this t-shirt and make millions by the end of the year. Let's get the pet rock of the weight loss world. The false sense of salad security. I love it. All right. I'm sorry. Right. So that was the big, you know what I love about this? We save the big stuff for last. So people get good information about the whole thing. So exercise simply does not burn. It doesn't burn as many calories as people think it does. And at the same time, food tends to carry as more calories than people think food carries. Right? I'm sorry. I'm in love with this t-shirt idea. I'm having my delusion of grandeur over here. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up?
I think that's, I think if you want to lose weight, focus more on controlling calories in than calories out, like exercising more, and you will have a much easier time. I think that's.
So let's summarize the fallacies here. So number one was, you think some reason you need to eliminate certain whole food groups. And when we said sometimes that could be valuable, a lot of times it's being used as a scapegoat for what will make you fail on any diet you start on, because you don't have certain skills and abilities. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. What was the second one? Because when I write these Devin notes, they're all over the place. What was the second one? It says cut out certain food groups.
The efforts aligning with expectations.
Beautiful. And just summarize that for people again. What needs to happen when you want to achieve a specific outcome?
Yeah. Wait, now I'm mixing it up with the 100-pound weight loss thing that I was talking about. Just having like uneducated expectations. Like if you're getting your weight loss expectations from Women's World magazine or the biggest, like you're gonna be very discouraged when you don't lose that amount of weight.
Kevin, why would they do this? Why would they do this to us? Why would they give us these unfair expectations? Why would the good people of the magazine, the diet and weight loss industry, why would Dr. Oz, why would he do this to us? Why? Like if you met Dr. Oz, wouldn't you just want to shake him and say, dude, why are you doing this to us? Why are you telling me that 20 pounds of weight loss? Or, maybe he's not even saying it, but he's on the front of the magazine, right?
Yeah.
Right. I think if I was on the front of Nazi Times, I might get some crap at the synagogue, right? Oh, it's like, that was a really bad analogy. You can't make Hitler analogies. Those are stupid. I have no good analogies now. I've just embarrassed myself. The point being is, why would they do that to us? Why would the weight loss industry put these on? Why?
Well,
why
people buy into it.
So it's about buy-in, is what you're telling me.
Yep.
It's not about me and you. It's not about weight loss. It's not about people actually getting control of their weight for one. It's about getting people to buy. Are people going to buy a magazine that says, hey, lose 1 pound a week? Hey, cut out most of the foods that you think you need to eat, and that's what it'll take to lose weight. What you're telling me is that the reason why they do this terrible thing to us is because they realize that the reality of weight loss is simply not as sexy as the fantasy, right?
Exactly.
Real life is not a porno movie, people. I can tell you that right now, right? It's not multiple camera angles and everyone's doing the right thing at the right time, saying the right thing at the right time. There's no pimples on anybody. You know what I'm saying? I am just up to my ass in bad analogies today. I just went from Nazis to porn. I'm losing it. Devin, take the video over. Just one more. Let's close it out. Exercise, the third fallacy. So the first was can't eat certain foods. The second is efforts and expectations aren't aligned. And the third one is exercise.
Oh, exercise doesn't burn nearly as many calories as whether it's your elliptical or your fitness class teacher tells you, or your Apple Watch tells you. You're more easily going to create a calorie deficit through controlling your food intake.
And what I think, people, is if you take these three things that Devin brought up, the food groups, the expectations and efforts not being aligned, the fact that exercise simply doesn't burn as many calories as you think it does, it's going to go a long way to helping you, unlike the unless the weight loss magazines with Dr. Oz, it's going to go a long way to helping you actually lose weight permanently and keep it off. I think that's fair to say. And I think that's a good video. I think, now, you know what? I think we today stick it to the Zoom time limitation. I say we stop this video 2 minutes and 30 seconds early because we can, because we've got that kind of power. Okay? Right. So I'm going to stop recording now. How do I even do that? Wait, more. Stop recording.